Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Hi, welcome to this discussion on anti-piracy, and particularly on an end-to-end anti-piracy strategy. I think we're all aware of the losses that we are experiencing in the industry as a result of piracy. The problem has become increasingly complex over the last couple of years. And in this session, we will talk a little bit about the different things we can do, different tactics that we use in the industry. My name is Lo Zuiderveld. I'm the product director for anti-piracy and cybersecurity at Adetto. And on this panel, I have Cameron Andrews, who is the director of anti-piracy for the BN Media Group. Brings with him a wealth of experience, a lot of, I think, 15 years of experience in anti-piracy. And
possibly more, but yes.
Possibly more, yeah. Then we have Alexander Velev, who is the seconded national expert in Europol, and previously with the Directorate Combating Organized Crime in Bulgaria. And then, last but not least, we have Ed McCarthy, who's the DAZN Chief Operating Officer. And Ed is responsible, joined shortly before the pandemic, and he's been responsible for resetting the business during that difficult time. Now, to start off with the questions, I think, Ed, we'll start with you. So the damaging effects of piracy is quite clear. And there's been a large loss of revenue, which especially in sports, has a lot to do with the sports investment, reducing that. There's also a concern with the fans using the platforms with their privacy and their security issues, and then ultimately leading to organized crime, the revenue. So DAZN has been making substantial investments to protect your intellectual property rights. What are the key components of the DAZN anti-piracy strategy?
Yeah, so fundamentally we run a live sports platform. So we don't have 12 years to monetize our content. We effectively, win or lose the customer in the first sort of 30 minutes of the game. So for us, the loss of content is at a more extreme end than perhaps a non-live content provider that has a longer window to monetize. So we focus primarily internally on technical solutions to stop leakage of content, to be able to trace the links and look to shut them down as quickly as possible. In terms of preventing loss, tokenization, DRM, things that everyone in this room is going to be pretty familiar with, are key for us. In the thing we've focused on mostly, and with Irideto's help actually, is invisible watermarking and the links to identify who in our ecosystem is effectively stealing our content and sharing it. And so those are the technical solutions. At a business level, we really don't see this being solved unless, as an industry, there's a holistic approach. And part of that is working with rights holders and distributors to make sure that while I spend a lot of money protecting my content, others do the same, so that we cut off the sort of low-hanging fruit for the pirates. And then the other is in terms of enforcement action. And again, you guys help us. We work with BN in terms of with ACE and really targeting the more egregious pirates and shutting those sections down. And then the final piece is sort of governmental and educational, kind of trying to explain to fans that piracy is leaking value out of a pretty tight run ship in terms of cash flows, and that the legitimate fans are picking up the cost of the illegitimate. And then finally, as I said, governmental, which is a slow-moving ship on this topic. But we've seen some good movement recently with the DSA in the EU, and we're hopeful that will kind of change the way the internet is looking at intellectual property and seeing it less like intellectual property and more like the criminal act it really is.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful.
Interesting. What would you say is your biggest piracy challenges that you're currently experiencing, and then how do you approach that?
So leaving aside the technical stuff, which fundamentally I think is, the world is full of extremely smart people, and ultimately we are constantly evolving, but as are the pirates, and it's a cat and mouse game. I think the things we struggle with the most are, in sports, the fact that you can't put all sport in a market in one place. So if you are a sports fan and you want to catch all of Bundesliga in Germany in one place, you know, unfortunately, you are likely to try and pirate it versus, you know, buying a DAZN plus another pack. So, you know, the industry's responding to that with bundle deals and you know, driving the cost down for the consumer, which is a good thing. Overridingly, perhaps not my generation, but certainly my daughter, who's 13, was heard to use the phrase "it's a victimless crime" the other day, which led to quite a strong debate in our house. And I think there's a real challenge with people feeling that, you know, this is not theft. And certainly for my generation, I remember watching VHS, where it used to come up with a, you know, you wouldn't steal a car, you wouldn't steal a TV, so, you know, you shouldn't steal, you know, content. I think, unfortunately, the younger generation, you know, they have a different view on this. And again, we need to address that, kind of perhaps not necessarily how the music industry did in the 2000s with, you know, going after individual 16-year-olds that have downloaded from Napster and the like, but you know, we do need to recognise there is a genuine link between piracy and hardcore criminals. Kind of, you know, the EPL in the UK brought a case recently, private prosecution, which, you know, linked piracy with child pornography and other pretty heinous content. So this isn't, you know, kids sharing links with each other. These are people monetizing at a significant level.
Yeah, so the educational piece remains key.
From our perspective, that's the bit where you sort of yin and yang. So on the one hand, do you educate and therefore broadcast the fact that there are these piracy options? On the other hand, if you don't educate, you're never going to kind of change people's mindset. So we do it along the lines of trying to explain to fans that they are effectively stealing from their clubs. You know, every dollar that goes into a piracy product, be it either someone paying with their credit card or through advertising on free sites, is money coming out of the legitimate sports network.
Yeah, and then less money for invest into future sporting competitions.
Exactly right.
Right.
Exactly right.
Cameron, can you give us some insight into the BN anti-piracy strategy and what do you find most effective to disrupt piracy?
Yep, sure. So similar to DAZN, we're focused particularly on our sports properties. We have a wide range of the particularly major European football properties and some other high-value sports as well. And we're operating in a market, particularly in MENA, where piracy is really endemic and is really part of the culture. So it is particularly challenging for us. So our strategy focuses really on 4 key areas, because there isn't one single thing that you can do that's going to solve the problem. So similar to what Ed says, technology is the starting point. So it begins with trying to secure the content. So we still obviously have a DTH business, and there it's about conditional access. But then on the DRM side, it's very similar as well. So it's about securing the platform. There are some really big challenges around that, particularly because, you know, people are aware Widevine and Microsoft PlayReady are not secure in their software forms, and so their, you know, scripts to circumvent those DRMs widely circulate on the internet, which means we're starting from behind with trying to secure the platform. So there are lots of things that we have worked on to make it more secure. We've built a tool in-house which uses AI and pretty sophisticated data analysis to detect people accessing our CDN and using our platform in ways that's likely to be for piracy. And that's all been very effective, actually, and we can see some great results. So in MENA, you know, we have drastically cut down the number of pirates who are the sources of all of the piracy of us that you'll see across the internet. There's probably really only about 3 or 4 who are responsible for everything that you'll see across IPTV and the websites. And similarly on the OTT side, we've had quite a lot of success in driving pirates away from that as well. But technology isn't the only thing in our toolkit, and technology alone won't solve the problem. So the next thing we focus on is blocking. So I think people are probably aware in the UK, blocking has really emerged as the kind of number one thing that the industry is focused on. The Premier League in particular has a very powerful blocking order through the courts, where they do sophisticated monitoring during live games, detect the source of the streams, and then have the internet service providers block their customers from accessing that. That's being done in lots of other parts of the world. So we did a lot of lobbying with others in France for a new law, which is administered by Arcom, for a blocking regime there, which is working very well. And then we're trying to do it in MENA as well. And some countries, particularly in the Gulf area, are working with us on that, and we're seeing some good results. Beyond blocking, we do what we call disruption. So we monitor the internet and we see which internet companies are providing facilities to the pirates. So we call these intermediaries, but they're basically providing the hosting services. And then we try to get them to cease providing those services to the pirates. We've been working on that for a number of years, a lot of outreach to legitimate companies who provide the hosting, and that has really seen a great result in driving piracy off those legitimate companies. But what it has done is pushed it into a kind of niche of what we call offshore hosting providers, and it's much more difficult to tackle those, but we are working on it. And then the fourth bucket is enforcement. So it's old-fashioned investigate who the pirates are and then take action against them. And we've done a number of cases, and I think we've had quite a lot of success operating in markets where you think it would be difficult to get good results, but we have. For instance, we were finding that about 2/3 of all of the pirate websites that were focused on Arabic content were being run by individuals in Egypt. And then when we joined ACE, we have succeeded in getting the Ministry of Interior in Egypt to take quite a lot of actions against the operators of those sites. So we've seen a huge number of those come down, and as a result, actually, there's been a contraction in the landscape of those streaming websites. They haven't gone away, but it's good to see we're moving in the right direction. And then the final bit, which I think Ed also touched on as well, is kind of like a subsidiary bucket. It's the work we do around advocacy, advocating for better laws, industry cooperation, working with our rights owners, our participation in bodies like ACE and other industry organisations, the education pieces, and the communications work that we do.
Okay. I think it's fair to say that the industry as a whole has been disappointed by the European Commission's recommendation on the piracy of live content, and it's a missed opportunity to implement some much-needed legislative reform. If you could wave your magic legislative wand to address piracy, what would you wish for?
Yeah, sure. So people often say we need better regulation, don't we? That's the answer. Having been involved in this for a while, the regulation path, it moves very, very slowly, and the results tend to be a bit disappointing. Once you go through the regulation sausage machine, what you get out the other end is often not that satisfying, and that's the case with what's been going on in the European Union. It really hasn't given us a solution that we need for live sports. I mean, really, live sports, the main thing we are focused on, as I said before with our disruption strategy, we can identify who the hosting providers are, and we want them to cease providing their facilities to the pirates, ideally in as close to real time as possible. And we don't really have a legislative environment that supports that, and the DSA won't really provide that for us either. And we also need something to tackle what I describe as the offshore hosting provider problem. We have a lot of actually hosting companies that just exist on paper and have been set up purely to circumvent the notice and takedown system, to circumvent the law. And we need tighter regulation of the internet industry, the hosting industry really, to stop those paper companies from being able to exist in that way. And a key way we could achieve that is through just quite simply better requirements on internet hosting companies to engage in due diligence, know their business customer, and know the nature of the content that they are carrying. And for reasons that I find hard to understand, there's been a real reluctance at the European Commission level to engage with that. But that's what we, as an industry, are particularly focused on pushing for.
Okay. And these hosting companies, of course, if you look at IP blocking, that is a pretty good solution to ultimately block that traffic coming from into the territory.
Yeah, so we focus on two ends of it. The only two ends that we can really see. So we can see the bit where the piracy goes onto the internet and who's providing that. And so what we say is those companies should cease providing their facilities to the pirates, and we can see the bit where it comes off the internet and goes into the residential customer's home. And that's where we focus on blocking by the residential internet service providers who are providing the internet connectivity to a residential customer.
Okay. And how important would you say the role is of the industry and law enforcement partnership in combating piracy? And then specifically on BN's approach, you mentioned the different jurisdictions that you operate. How important is that?
Well, as I said, one of the buckets is investigations and enforcement, and there, yeah, we very much depend on law enforcement to help us. A lot of the cases are ultimately taken by public prosecutors, including in MENA where we operate. You know, we've got a case, a very significant case at the moment in Jordan. We have one in Bahrain. You know, it's been handled by the public prosecutor there. We've referred a number of cases into Saudi Arabia. That's handled by prosecutors. The stuff that goes on in Egypt, that's done by the Ministry of Interior and the Egyptian police. There's been a lot of industry-level cases as well that have been coordinated across Europe by Europol and Eurojust, and there, you know, the support of law enforcement is really key.
Okay. Speaking of the partnership of law enforcement, Alex, Impact, or the European Multidisciplinary Platform Against Criminal Threats, a security initiative driven by EU member states to identify, prioritize, and address threats posed by organized international crimes. IP crime is a priority for Europol under this initiative. So can you provide the audience with a brief overview of the structure of Europol, AP Copy, and how you're working with Europol member states in partnering with the industry to address streaming piracy?
Thank you for the invitation, first of all, and giving me the floor. Yes, you're right. IP crime is considered as a priority at the European level, and Europol plays a key role in it. So basically, Europol is the European Union's law enforcement agency, and Europol's work covers a wide range of crimes such as cybercrime, terrorism, human trafficking, drugs trafficking, economic and financial crime. And that's why there are several departments at Europol, and one of the departments is the European Financial Crime Center, where I work at, where AP Copy is situated. So AP Copy is an analysis project which is dedicated to intellectual property crime, and it is divided in two parts. One is online team, the other is offline team. Offline team is more focused on the counterfeit goods area and the physical market. Our team is mostly focused on online platforms, social media, and at all the online environment of the IP crime. So basically what we do and our main objectives are to facilitate and coordinate cross-border investigations and to support the competent authorities. We also monitor and do reports about certain trends, and also we provide officers with trainings on these specific topics. So basically, when we receive some information from countries, we are analyzing it and we can do some cross-checks in our databases. And our main role is we are actually an informational hub for Europe regarding these crimes. We are collecting intelligence and data from all over Europe, and our main target is to build a bigger picture, not only to investigate at a local level, but to target master criminals, to target organized criminal groups regarding these matters. And we are also having some recurrent operations. We are performing them each year. One of them is called In Our Sites. We receive data from private sector regarding web pages that are distributing illegal copyrighted materials. and we are working with each law enforcement agencies in each European member state. And also we have another operation, it's called Aphrodite, where we are targeting social media accounts used to facilitate and promote such illegal activities. Some of the things that we are also doing are trainings. As you are aware, we are doing it together with you, with APA, the Audiovisual Anti-Piracy Alliance. And as this crime is considered as a high-tech crime, we need law enforcement to have the proper knowledge and to be updated in order to investigate and then to prosecute this crime in a certain way.
Okay. One of the things that Ed mentioned before is that obviously, the money that customers are spending on pirate streaming services is obviously, it is quite a lucrative operation. Can you comment on, the cases that we've seen in the past? There's been a lot of assets has been seized in cross-border activity. Can you give us some insights on how lucrative one of these pirate services are? And of course, any links to other serious crimes?
Yes, definitely it's an extremely lucrative market for criminals, not only because the profits that they can gain are huge in a short amount of time, but also it is a crime that is hard to be detected, and the penalties unfortunately are low in most of the countries. And yes, it was estimated, and you can see that in one of our threat assessments, that this crime can gain around $1 billion of euros per year only in European level. And within our investigations that we were supporting in the past, we have seized a huge amount of money. We have seen that they're also using cryptocurrencies, and as well as what you said, yes, sometimes IP crime and digital piracy specifically is linked to other types of crimes. For example, digital piracy can be a crime enabler towards other crimes, such as money laundering, for sure, because in order not to be detected, they need to launder their money. And there are certain organized criminal groups that are specialized in money laundering. So the criminal groups that are dealing with digital piracy are connecting those criminal groups, and they're working together. Also, digital piracy can be followed by tax evasion, malware distribution, which is a huge issue. And of course, sometimes the digital piracy criminals are the ones who are owners of the hosting company, and they can provide the crime as a service. They can provide their servers to other criminals for different crimes, such as it was mentioned, child sexual exploitation online and other type of crimes.
Okay. I have a question about the hosting providers, but interestingly, Ed, before this session, we had a bit of a talk about payment disruption as a service, so cutting off the funds effectively from the pirates. Ed, is there any comment you want to make on the success of that service?
Sure. So fundamentally, I'm a big believer that no one does anything in this world unless they're going to get paid, especially criminals. So tracking the money, as you laid out, is one of the key ways. There are fundamentally three ways of monetizing and piracy. The first is through a user using their credit card. The second is through payments for advertising, and the third is the insertion of malware and theft of your data or your money. The first two are being pretty shamelessly facilitated by either credit card companies or online payment services, adding a degree of legitimacy. So if you go to a IPTV provider and you insert your credit card details or your PayPal account details, you can end up with a service that has all sport, all content, and to a degree you feel somewhat protected if you hand over your PayPal account details, because you know that you're held harmless if it transpires to be a criminal. That's a situation which again you asked us if we could wave our magic wand to address something. That would be probably one of the key areas that would dramatically reduce things if it were the case that credit card companies became responsible for, the payment for criminal content. The second is advertising. We've done some in-house review of advertising that's served against pirated sports channels, and Google has a pretty dominant position in live ad insertion. And it's not their fault. They have a system which utilizes ad tech insertion and makes it as easy as possible for a website to set up ad insertion. You go in, you add the markers, and Google has an automated system running billions of websites for people, so it's pretty difficult to track all of it. But again, it's the way that people are paid for piracy. And if you were to adjust those two things, I think, and we're certainly, I haven't been doing piracy for 20 years. I've been doing it since January. So I just look at it and just take the view that follow the money. So that's where we spend an awful lot of our time, or I do currently, which is going after the legitimate third parties who are regulated. Credit card companies are regulated. There are third parties that we can go to. Google fundamentally does not want pirates in its ecosystem. So we need to work with them to, come up with a system for turning that off. That's not to make Google, in my personal view, the policeman of the internet. But, certainly where we're reporting sites to them that are clearly pirate sites, we would like them to kick them out of their ecosystem. And I think, we'll see that Google becomes more responsive to that over time, I suspect. But yeah, my view on disruption is follow the money, principally.
Okay, thank you. Alex, coming back to you for the bulletproof hosting companies, so to speak, and that remains to be a priority for Europol. What do you think that can be done to address the problem when it comes to law enforcement and from a regulatory perspective? And what more can we do?
Yeah, bulletproof hosting companies are for sure an ongoing concern for us. And I believe there is not a single solution for this issue. There is not a single formula to address this problem. And first of all, as we are speaking about cross-border crime, we need to strengthen cooperation between law enforcement in different countries, also to strengthen public-private partnership to include internet service providers in this, let's say, hard work against those hosting companies. But what I believe for sure that works is to find them, to freeze their assets, to blacklist companies related to bulletproof hosting companies, and as well, for sure, raiding them and seizing servers is kind of a solution. But in order to do that, we need to have proper legislations, because in certain country, IP crime is not considered as a serious crime, and in those countries you cannot perform certain actions. And also we need dedicated teams, because some countries also are having a lack of dedicated officers and prosecutors that are understanding and being able to properly investigate this kind of an issue. But I believe that working together, we can at least push them a bit more away of the piracy.
Understood. Cameron, your thoughts?
Yeah. We're talking about rogue and bulletproof hosting providers and offshore hosting providers, but maybe we should say a little bit again about the legitimate ones. Ed points to Google, and yeah, for instance, there's definitely more there that I think can be done. Certainly, some aspects of Google have certainly improved a lot, but a lot of Google services do still play a significant role in facilitating piracy. I'm also looking a lot at Facebook at the moment. We've had problems for about 12 months now with all of our major properties being very easily watchable on Facebook Live. And despite the efforts that we've been making with Facebook and changes and things that have been made behind the scenes to crack down on that, it hasn't gone far enough. So more has to be done. It's causing us a huge problem that it's very easy for anyone just to go onto Facebook, during any of the major football games and find streams, and you can watch the whole game. Even if your stream comes down, which it may, you just go pop out and find another stream and you can watch the whole game. So, you know, there are still some problems around that. And then even on the bulletproof hosting provider issue. So what we're talking about here is we find it's a hosting provider, and then we look in the registries and we find there is no website for that company. There'll be some sort of bogus name in the registry. There may be a company registered in the Seychelles or some offshore location, and everyone thinks, oh, we all need to get on a plane and fly down to the Seychelles and see if we can find this data center there that's doing all the hosting. The data center is in the same place it's always been. It's in the Netherlands, most likely, in exactly the same building it always ever was, except the pirates have been able to manipulate the registration system for IP addresses and the requirements to put your details into the RIPE database, for instance. So it makes it look like it's some sort of strange hosting provider in the Seychelles or Colombia or wherever it may be. But in actual fact, it's a data center in the Netherlands. And there is a real lack of transparency around that. You know, the companies providing these services well know the nature of of who they're dealing with, but there is it's very difficult to exert any leverage over that. So I think there is actually still more to be done on working with the legitimate industry to get them to play far lesser role in facilitating all of this piracy, which is causing the rest of the legitimate industry that we're all trying to participate in, you know, so much harm.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's clear that there's many things that we can still do to combat the problem. And we need to keep on doing what we're doing and push whether it's a regulation, the government bodies, the industry, into the same direction. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. Thank you very much.